Folks, today I want to talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defensive line and why I feel like it could be a pretty solid idea for the Bucs to trade to get some help in the defensive trenches. Shout out to Sleeper, by the way, more on them a little bit later on in this video. So in this one today, I want to focus on two players specifically. One is from the Cleveland Browns, the other is from the Dallas Cowboys. But let's set the table. Why do I feel like the Buccaneers should even trade for a defensive lineman in the first place? Well, as you guys know, I've been going through every single week of the Pro Football Focus grades, talking about some of the top and worst performers every week. And really, aside from Vita Vea and maybe like 1 week of Greg Gaines and 1 week of Logan Hall, the Bucs have really not been getting much from their defensive line. And I know that they really like the potential of Elijah Roberts. I like the potential of Elijah Roberts as well, but they're very much missing a key element that is lacking because Kalijah Cansey is out for the year with a torn pec. And I'm not saying you need to go out there and go trade for some high-tier defensive lineman that you need to give up a third or a fourth round draft pick for. No, you could go out there and give up a fifth, a sixth, or maybe even a pick swap, something along those lines, and I would be completely content with that type of situation, in my opinion. But who are some guys that they should possibly look at? Well, one name that pops to mind, in my opinion, is actually a former first-round pick in the 2023 NFL Draft. Now, I've done some research, by the way, of which players could be on the trade block and things like that, and one guy that did come up was Mazi Smith of the Dallas Cowboys. Now, with the Dallas Cowboys trading for Kenny Clark, there isn't really much of a role for Mazi Smith in terms of his, I guess, solidified place with the Cowboys. He hasn't started any games this year. He went from starting 3 in 2023, playing in all 17, starting 17 games, playing all 17 games in 2024, to only playing in 3 games in 2025. Now, I'm not necessarily sure if that is because of an injury. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and look it up right now. I don't know if he's been a healthy scratch. I don't know if he's just been injured. It doesn't look like he has been injured. It looks like he was actually just benched, recently here a few weeks ago. He's actually just been a healthy scratch most weeks. So could the Tampa Bay Buccaneers take advantage and get some, help along their defensive line with a former first-round draft pick out of Michigan? Well, I certainly think it's possible. And look, even if Mazi Smith is a guy who's just a rotational pass rusher type of guy, 6'3", 337 pounds, by the way, I wouldn't be mad at that for a low-end pick because, look, at the Pro Football Focus grades here, I mean, it's not exactly wowing anyone, but the tackling is still solid. The run defense, basically non-existent, but the pass rush grades are honestly pretty serviceable. So if you were looking to just get an injection of youthful, big time potential defensive lineman that could give you something immediately as a pass rusher, and then you see where you want to go from there because he's still going to be on his rookie deal, Mazi Wilkins wouldn't be a bad option. I mean, he's got one more year in his deal after this. This is somebody that I wouldn't mind the Bucs taking a flyer on. He was a first-round pick for a reason, right? So I am curious, and maybe he would play better with guys like Vita Vea and under the tutelage of the Buccaneers defense. One thing that I will give a lot of a lot of credit to Todd Bowles for is that he can develop certain position groups on the defensive side of the ball. So I'd be curious to see what he could do with Mazi Smith, and if he could really break into that potential. And again, at 24 years old, come on, that's worth a late round flyer in my opinion, especially since it seems like the Cowboys have all but given up on Mr. Mazi Smith. Another guy I want to talk about, which is probably the more notable name in my opinion, is Malik Collins. Now, Malik Collins is a guy who is very much the opposite of Mazi Smith. He is a journeyman. He has been going out there and has been around the league. Right, he has been to a lot of different teams throughout his time in the NFL. He is 30 years old, will be 31 years old after next season. I believe he has one more year on his deal after this season as well. I don't think he's making a ton of money. I'd be curious to see what his contract is, because if it's not a crazy big deal, okay, yeah, it is kind of a big deal. It's a 2-year, $20 million deal. So his cap hit next year is actually only 5.7 mil. So that's not a crazy cap hit, all things considered. Of course, the void years are in that and everything. But the Cleveland Browns are in a position where, look, they're not winning a lot of football games right now. They find themselves at 1-5. Could they move on from a bit of a expensive veteran? I don't know. It's certainly possible. But whenever you look at Collins' overall ability, yeah, it's easy to see why I would want the Buccaneers to be interested. The tackling is not great, but a 91.0 pass rushing grade, an 89.9 overall defensive grade. This could be a guy who could be your full-time starter throughout the remainder of this season and maybe even next year as well. Because remember, Logan Hall's contract expires after this year. So you could go out, maybe get a guy like Malik Collins and really have some good ability there with Malik, with obviously a returning Kalajdzic and a Vita Vea in there as well. He's already got 3.5 sacks this year, everybody. 34 sacks in his NFL career. He's played in 142 games, started 135 overall games. This is a guy that if I was a defensive coach, I'd be pounding the table and saying, Jason Light, please. Now, I don't know what it would cost. Could cost a fifth, could cost, some type of pick swap. I don't know. But I would certainly be willing to try at least, and call Cleveland and say, what would it take to get Malik Collins on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? And I know at this level of production, you may say, well, why would they want to trade him? Again, the Browns are in a bad situation. They're trying to build assets for the future. I'd give up a fifth. I don't know if I'd give up a fourth because he only got 1 year left on his deal after this. So I don't know if you could convince me to give up a fourth, but I would certainly say, dude, I'll give you a fifth all day for a guy like Malik Collins because of what he would add to this pass rushing room. 6'2", 310 pounds in there as well. So I think the Buccaneers should certainly add to their defensive line trenches, especially with the uncertainty of the future of Kalajdzic, the future of Logan Hall. This guy's under contract for next season at least, and then Mazi Smith is under contract for next season at least as well. So it does give you a little bit more flexibility there. What do you guys think? Do you want to see the Buccaneers trade for a defensive lineman? Let me know your thoughts and opinions. I'd love to hear about it. One more thing, everybody, I do want to say shout out to the sponsor of this channel. It is Sleeper. If you guys do use the code MrBucs, you will get a $100 or 100% match up to $100. Again, that is whenever you use the code SLEEPER. Also, everybody, just for signing up, you get $20 for free. It is simple as that. So make sure you go download the Sleeper app today. Enjoy football the way it was meant to be. That is together. As always, guys, I'll see you all in the next video or the next live stream. But until then, and as always, guys, goodbye for now, and go Bucs.